Before we begin our story, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and drop a comment with your feedback on our stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The sky was on fire. It began with an unholy radiance, a searing conflagration lighting up the heavens above Earth. A fleet of obsidian warships, emblazoned with the fearsome insignia of the Zanari Empire, descended like a wrathful tempest. Their plasma lances streaked across a darkening sky, carving arcs of agony as they battered the atmosphere. Cities that once pulsed with life, New York, London, Beijing, were reduced to smoldering ruins, mere embers in a horrifying inferno. Humanity's defenses, though fought with valor, were shattered before the first cries of warning could mobilize any semblance of a counterattack. Aboard the UEN Valiant, Admiral Silas Kane, a battle-worn commander with scars as deep as his regrets, stared in numb disbelief as the world below him was unstitched in a single, cataclysmic moment. His voice, hoarse from years of command and sorrow, shattered the oppressive silence in the control room. Status on the Exodus fleet? Kane demanded, his knuckles white as he gripped the cold, unyielding surface of his command console. Lieutenant Mira Vallon, his second-in-command, a determined young officer whose face bore streaks of sweat and soot, answered with a terse urgency. "Last wave is departing now, sir." Kane exhaled sharply, his breath laden with the weight of countless decisions made in the crucible of war. "Then we hold the line. We make them pay for every second we can give our people." Inside the Valiant, memories welled up like distant echoes. Kane remembered his early days as an idealistic officer, when the stars promised hope rather than despair, and honor was the only currency in the theater of war. Now, as Earth's defenders fell one by one beneath a relentless barrage of plasma torpedoes, Kane's resolve hardened into a silent promise. Even as the vessel was torn apart, his final thought was not of regret, it was a vow that burned brighter than the flames below: we will return. In the wake of Earth's annihilation, the remnants of humanity clung desperately to survival. The Exodus fleet, a motley collection of retrofitted ships and battered evacuation vessels, carried what little hope remained. Among the passengers were scientists, engineers, soldiers, children, and dreamers unwilling to let humanity's fire be extinguished. They navigated the cosmos as exiles, incorporating grief, hope, and a burning desire for revenge. Even as his flagship fell into the abyss of shattered light, Silas Kane's mind flickered with fragments of the past. Born into a modest family in a small coastal town on Earth, Kane had learned early that life was fragile. His father, a stern but loving sailor, had instilled in him the value of honor and sacrifice. The later years in the Galactic Wars had transformed him. Every scar on his face was a record of battles fought and friends lost. Now, as he witnessed Earth's end, that inner reservoir of guilt and determination surged up. His heart ached for the countless lives that ended in a blink, and his spirit seethed with the promise of retribution. Amid the chaos of falling cities and collapsing skies, his final command was a beacon to the surviving souls: they must last, and they must one day return to reclaim what was stolen from them. Beside him, Lieutenant Mira Vallon had grown up on stories of heroism and cosmic adventure, but nothing could have prepared her for this apocalypse. Raised in a bustling megacity on Earth, she had once believed in the sanctity of order and progress. Now, every soot-streaked panel on her uniform whispered of the price of defiance against a tyrannical empire. She'd seen her family lost in a factory fire triggered by the early strikes of the Zanari, and every day since had been a struggle to forge strength from despair. Even as she relayed status updates through trembling words to Admiral Kane, she harbored a quiet fury. In silent moments between orders, Myra's thoughts would wander to her younger self, a hopeful girl who loved to watch the stars, and to the bitter realization that the galaxy could be remade, one battle at a time. For the desperate survivors aboard the Exodus fleet, hope was both a fragile thread and a steely resolve. They had become ghosts in the void, exiled from the only home they'd ever known, carrying with them the bitter legacy of a threat that had once sought to exterminate all life. After years of wandering through the endless corridors of deep space, dodging Zanari patrols and the specter of extinction, a beacon of hope emerged. Captain Elias Voss, a former intelligence officer of the United Earth Navy whose soul had been tempered by relentless grief, rose among the survivors. In his memory lay the ghosts of a destroyed Earth, and in his mind, the blueprint for a new beginning. Elias Voss had once been a man of quiet intellect and gentle ambition. Born into an era of relative prosperity, he had pursued a vocation in intelligence, believing that knowledge could sway the tides of war. The collapse of Earth was both a personal and communal tragedy. In an explosion of cosmic cruelty, his family, friends, and tools of hope were extinguished. With a burning determination forged in the crucible of loss, he transformed into a fearless leader, guided by the promise of vengeance and the desire to nurture life where death had once reigned. It was Voss who masterminded the selection of Persephone, a distant, uncharted world hidden behind a nebula thick with cosmic mist. This, he declared during a clandestine meeting aboard the flagship Nemesis, is not the Earth we lost, but it is the seed of our future. Here, among these alien landscapes, humanity can rise anew. Persephone was unlike any planet the Remnants had ever known. Its surface was a mosaic of rugged highlands, dense, mist-laden forests, and mysterious canyons etched by ancient rivers. Towering rock formations rose from verdant valleys, their shadows casting a mix of hope and foreboding. Beneath a sky painted in hues of violet and amber, scattered colonies gradually emerged from the hardy souls who had come to call Persephone home. The survivors built cities out of salvaged technology and remnants of alien machinery gathered from long-forgotten wreckage. Influential figures like Dr. Lena Holloway, a brilliant scientist whose quiet determination masked years of personal sacrifice, began reverse engineering captured Zanari tech. Her work on quantum disruption cannons, capable of tearing through the enemy's shields, and phase-cloaking technology, which rendered entire warships invisible, became the backbone of the new defense apparatus. Yet, on Persephone, not everything was a tale of rebirth. Deep in the heart of those thriving yet fragile cities, the memories of Earth's devastation haunted every citizen. Monuments were raised, not just in honor of the fallen, but as both warnings and tributes to the indomitable human spirit. A towering obelisk in the capital city of New Hope bore engraved the names of martyrs, serving as a daily reminder that while the past could not be undone, it must never be forgotten. Amid the rebuilding, the debate over humanity's future raged throughout Persephone's council chambers. On one side, Captain Voss insisted that the lost Earth demanded restitution in the form of vengeance. On the other, Dr. Lena Holloway counseled caution, urging that their people needed time to heal and rebuild. In hushed, feverish debates, Voss's voice would rise above the clamor of dissenters. We did not flee to perish among the stars. We came to forge a new destiny, and that destiny must include retribution for what the Zenari inflicted on our world. His words carried the weight of every life burned in the inferno of Earth's demise. Holloway's retort was measured but resolute. Vengeance clouds judgment. If we become obsessed with retribution, we risk losing sight of what must be rebuilt, a society governed not by hatred, but by hope and progress. Our sacrifices must pave the way for peace, not perpetual war. Caught in the middle of this ideological war were the survivors whose eyes had witnessed the unending horrors of the Zenari assault. Their faces were etched in sorrow and determination, each scar a reminder of battles fought and promises made in the twilight of Earth's last moments. As decades passed and the new civilization on Persephone took shape, humanity transformed from broken exiles into a species reborn in war. Their advancements in technology and tactics soon became a dark mirror of the Zenari's own monstrous capabilities. With each experimental quantum cannon, each stealth ship emerging out of phase swirl, they became an ever-present reminder to the universe that Earth's children were not to be trifled with. Deep within the labyrinthine networks of humanity's intelligence apparatus, Commander Soren Dax and his team uncovered a critical fragment of information. The Zenari Empress herself would soon be arriving on Rallus Prime, a jewel at the heart of the enemy empire, for a military summit. This revelation set the stage for perhaps the most audacious counterstrike in human history. Gathering around a holographic map in the war room of the Nemesis, Captain Voss convened his most trusted officers. "This summit is our chance to cripple them at their core," Voss proclaimed with a voice that blended determination with a heavy recall of lost innocence. "We strike at Rallus Prime, and while our fleet rages above, an elite infiltration team will seize the Empress. Today, we reclaim our pride." Standing by his side was Sergeant Mira Kane, now a seasoned warrior bearing not only the legacy of her fallen father, Admiral Silas Kane, but also the scars of innumerable battles that had forged her into an unyielding leader. "I will lead the strike team," she vowed, her voice resonating with cold resolve as she locked eyes with her comrades. "For every life lost on Earth. For every sacrifice. For our future." The plan was as bold as it was perilous. Humanity's deadliest warships, spearheaded by the Nemesis, leaped from hyperspace into the void near Rallus Prime, their phase-cloaking devices dropping away like the last vestige of a dying dream. Quantum disruption cannons roared to life, beams of shimmering energy sliced through enemy defenses, reducing Zenari vessels to gossamer threads of light. On the surface of Rallus Prime, chaos reigned. Amid burning skies and trembling ground, the relentless advance of merged forces, the vanguard of humanity and the allied Krell ground troops, pounded back the Zenari defenses. Mira Kane led the charge with a singular focus, her rifle blazing fiercely as she and her strike team carved a path through the enemy lines. Her inner dialogue, a mix of memories and burning determination, echoed in the pits of her soul. "I fight not just for vengeance, but for the promise of a future where our children will know hope." High above the battlefield, aboard the Nemesis's command deck, Captain Voss maintained a steely gaze at the unfolding spectacle. "The enemy did not expect a counter-assault," he murmured, partly to himself and partly to the crew. "They underestimated the fury of humanity." Meanwhile, within the chrome-laden corridors of the Zenari Palace, a different kind of battle was being waged. Sergeant Mira Kane and her strike team moved like phantoms through shadowed halls, eliminating elite guards with the precision of trained assassins. Their objective was clear: to reach the throne room and neutralize the figurehead of tyranny. In the grand, cold expanse of the throne room, the Zenari Empress, her crimson eyes ablaze with unholy fire, was caught off guard by the incursion. "You destroyed my world," Mira declared, stepping into the light with a calm that belied the storm raging within. "You are but an insect, a remnant of a failed race. You cannot hope to oppose destiny." Before the Empress could finish her defiant retort, a burst of plasma tore through the space between them, silencing her forever. The reclamation of Rallus Prime had been set in motion, and the cosmos trembled at the sound of retribution. As the rebel forces pressed forward, Captain Voss watched from orbit as the once impregnable capital burned in a cascade of fire and fury. "Today marks a turning point," he declared over the comm channel, his voice resonating with both triumph and sorrow. "The Zenari have tasted the fire we wield. But let it be known, the war is far from over." The destruction of Rallus Prime signified the collapse of the Zenari Empire's centralized command. Yet even in victory, the survivors knew that true peace had not yet come. The galaxy now lay fractured and chaotic. With the void left by the Empress's death, the vast expanse of Zenari territory splintered into innumerable warring factions. Rogue warlords, mercenaries, and rogue admirals began to carve out their dominions amidst the chaos. In turn, the human and allied forces faced the daunting task of not only exacting vengeance but also restoring order to a galaxy poised on the brink of anarchy. Back on Persephone, the survivors labored to transform their refuge into a bastion of hope. Towering cities arose from the barren landscapes, striking spires of steel and glass intertwined with repurposed alien technology. The capital, New Hope, became a living monument to the trials and triumphs of humanity. A massive memorial, an obelisk etched with the names of the fallen, stood in the city center, a solemn reminder that every achievement was paid for in sacrifice. Within the bustling corridors of city halls and reconstructed research labs, debates raged over the future. Captain Elias Voss, still a revered figure among both human and alien allies, argued passionately for a proactive role in the galaxy. "We didn't fight this war solely to watch the galaxy burn," he declared at a heated council meeting. "If we retreat into isolation, all that we have fought for, our lives, our losses, our dreams, will be lost." Not all shared his zeal for external engagement. Dr. Lena Holloway, whose brilliant mind had guided the development of revolutionary weapons, countered with a plea for rebuilding. "We have sacrificed too much already," she insisted, her soft yet determined tones echoing in the grand chamber. "Our people need time to heal. We must rebuild our own society before we assume the mantle of savior for a broken galaxy." Amid these debates, the coalition began to take shape. Humanity forged alliances with species who had long suffered under Zenari domination. The Krell, an advanced, enigmatic race led by the shrewd Chancellor Zara Vey, extended an offer of alliance that promised not only military might but also shared wisdom. Yet, every ally came with its own ambitions. The insectoid Zalfari and the aquatic Nereids, newly emboldened by the fall of Zenari supremacy, demanded representation and respect in the emerging order. In countless strategy meetings held in an ornate, repurposed palace on Persephone, Voss found himself navigating not only the memories of war but also the treacherous waters of interspecies diplomacy. His military acumen served him well on the battlefield, but here he was forced to hone a different kind of craft, that of statecraft. With the steadfast support of Sergeant Mira Kane, now a symbol of resilience, and Commander Soren Dax, whose intelligence network unearthed hidden plots at every turn, Voss engaged in negotiations that were as fraught with tension as they were laden with promise. One pressing threat loomed large in these discussions. General Kale Draxus, a remnant Zanari military leader who had survived the cataclysmic fall of the Empire, now commanded a rogue faction bent on reclaiming the glory of the fallen regime. Draxus's forces had continued to launch hit-and-run attacks on coalition outposts, seeking to destabilize the fragile peace. "We can't fight a war on every front," Voss warned during a clandestine strategy meeting. "If we do not find and neutralize Draxus, the chaos we have fought so hard to subdue will only spiral out of control." Thus began the arduous hunt for General Draxus, a mission that took Sergeant Mira Kane and her specially formed task force to the outer fringes of known space. This ragtag team, composed of both human and Krell operatives, journeyed into lawless sectors where smugglers, pirates, and rogue artificial intelligences reigned supreme. Their objective was clear: locate Draxus and bring an end to his insurgency once and for all. As their fleet skirted the boundaries of a dying star system, the task force encountered abandoned space stations, drifting debris fields, and cryptic signals that hinted at the presence of hidden caches of Zanari technology. Amid these uncertain environs, Mira found herself grappling with a transformation. The thirst for vengeance that had spurred her earlier actions was now tempered by an emerging clarity. In a quiet moment aboard the assault vessel, she recorded in her personal log, "Each passing day removes a layer of bitterness. Our fight is no longer solely for the ghosts of our past, we fight for the promise of tomorrow. I carry not only the memory of my father, whose sacrifice echoes in every heartbeat, but also the newfound hope of a people determined to build rather than destroy." The task force's search eventually led them to a derelict space station orbiting a dying star, a fortress repurposed by Draxus himself. The station, fortified with reclaimed Zanari weaponry and draped in eerie silence, was both a physical and symbolic reflection of the rogue general's desperate clinging to power. In a daring assault that combined guerrilla tactics with the latest human-Krell hybrid strategies, Mira and her team wove through corridors lined with remnants of once great civilizations, engaging in brutal close-quarters combat with Draxus's surviving lieutenants. Finally, in the claustrophobic heart of the station's command center, Mira confronted Draxus. The battle was savage and personal, a melee of ideologies, of youthful hope pitted against the bitter remnants of a fallen empire. Though grievously wounded and cornered, Draxus fought with a ferocity born of decades of desperation. In the end, Mira emerged victorious. As the rogue general fell, his final, ragged breaths mingled with the echoes of countless lost souls. With his death, a significant chapter in the legacy of the Zanari was closed, a bittersweet triumph that underscored the high cost of peace. With the immediate threat of the rogue Zanari faction neutralized, the coalition turned its focus to crafting a lasting peace, a process that would forever reshape the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on Persephone for an unprecedented summit, the Galactic Accord. The negotiations, held in a great hall that combined human architectural ingenuity with alien aesthetics, were a delicate dance of diplomacy, compromise, and the painful echoes of past betrayals. Delegates from the Krell, Zalthari, Nereids, and many other civilizations filled the marble and crystalline halls of the conference center. Tensions ran high. Old wounds festered. The Zalthari, whose worlds had been ravaged by Zanari cruelty, demanded reparations that would secure the future of their countless colonies. The Nereids, graceful yet formidable, insisted on enhanced autonomy over their aquatic realms, wary of any single species, human or otherwise, taking undue control. At the podium, Captain Elias Voss, now tempered by years of conflict and diplomacy, addressed the assembly with a measured yet impassioned speech. "We cannot undo the darkness of our past. But we have the power to shape the future. If we let our differences divide us, we risk repeating the mistakes of those who came before. Today, I ask you to join hands in the spirit of cooperation, to forge a new legacy, a legacy not of vengeance alone, but of hope, rebuilding, and unity." His words resonated with many. Slowly, through long hours of heated debates and tearful confessions of loss, the warring factions began chipping away at their mutual distrust. In private alcoves and roundtable discussions, unexpected alliances formed. A tender moment occurred between a human diplomat and a young Krell envoy, their shared sorrow over past atrocities bridging the gap between radically different worlds. Even Sergeant Mira Kane, who had once thrived solely on vengeance, found herself advocating for lasting peace, her own personal growth reflecting the maturity that comes from the acceptance of both loss and hope. The summit culminated in the drafting of the Galactic Accord, a framework for cooperation, mutual defense, and equitable reparation. Under the Accord, each species would have a stake in the new galactic order. Humanity, while prominent due to its recent heroic resurgence, did not dominate. Instead, a council was formed, with representatives from each allied race working together to stabilize the fractured remnants of the once mighty Zanari territories. But peace was not handed over without challenges. Chancellor Zaraveh of the Krell, a master of political maneuvering, negotiated skillfully, ensuring that the accord also expanded her people's influence. Tensions flared again over issues of sovereignty and resource allocation. In one intense session, a heated exchange erupted. "Zalthari delegate, your promises of support ring hollow if you intend to impose your will upon our home worlds. Human delegate, we seek collaboration, not domination. Our shared history demands that we rebuild together, or else we all crumble to dust." For hours, voices clashed and tempers flared. But gradually, with the wisdom of elders and the fresh perspectives of youth intertwining like the streams of a converging river, a fragile consensus emerged. The accord was signed amid an atmosphere of cautious optimism, a promise that if united, the galaxy could rise from the ashes of war into an era of lasting peace and prosperity. Back on Persephone, the signs of reconstruction were everywhere. The cities, once scarred by the devastation of exile, flourished with new energy. Renovated structures blended the old with the new, a nod to the legacy of Earth and a claim on the future. At a grand ceremony in New Hope, a monument was unveiled in honor of all those who had fallen in the long struggle. Amid the cheers and tearful embraces of citizens from every corner of the coalition, an elderly Captain Voss reflected on the journey that had transformed remnants of despair into architects of a brighter tomorrow. "I remember," Voss said quietly during his address, how we were once consigned to the darkness, a scattered, defeated people. But look around you now. We have forged a community that spans worlds and species. We stand together as guardians of the future. Beside him, Sergeant Mira Kane, her once icy resolve having given way to a compassionate yet unyielding leadership, nodded solemnly. The sacrifices we endure must always serve as a reminder: peace is not merely the absence of war, but the courage to build in spite of our scars. In the years that followed the signing of the Galactic Accord, the galaxy slowly healed. The tumultuous era of the Zanari Empire, of ruthless vengeance and fiery retribution, receded into the pages of history. Yet the legacy of that brutal chapter endured as both a warning and an inspiration. Humanity, once exiled and broken, had risen from the ashes to become not just survivors, but builders and peacemakers. Their journey from Earth's scorched ruins to the luminous promise of Persephone and beyond was chronicled in star-swept legends told in cantinas, council chambers, and classroom lectures across myriad worlds. However, challenges remained ever present. Rogue factions, remnants of old regimes, and new threats born of ambition and greed continued to test the fragile peace. General Kale Draxus's insurgency might have been quashed, but without vigilance, the embers of discord could be fanned into raging infernos once again. In one final act of resolve, Mira Kane, now both a warrior and a mentor to the next generation, addressed a gathering of young cadets at a training facility on Persephone. We stand on the shoulders of those who sacrificed everything. Our duty is not only to protect the hard-won peace but to ensure that every life, every dream, is nurtured so that one day this galaxy shines with hope rather than fear. The remnants did not fall quietly into the dark, they fought. And as long as we remember, we will never fade. As the stars of Persephone's night sky twinkled above, the legacy of the remnants grew stronger. The memory of a lost Earth and the heroic struggle for vengeance had given birth to a new era, a time defined not by the tragedies of the past, but by a lasting commitment to a future in which every being had a place at the table of destiny. The Galactic Accord became a living document, continuously refined by the council of diverse species united by a collective vision of peace. And though the scars of war would forever mar the memory of a turbulent past, so too would they serve as a constant reminder that from the darkest nights, the brightest dawns are born. In this universe of endless possibility and ceaseless change, the stars shimmered as eternal witnesses to the courage, compassion, and relentless determination of those who had once been nothing more than the remnants, and who now defined the future of a galaxy reborn.